Hello everyone, this is the Mining Geologist and I'm back again with another very exciting and very informative tutorial. This is the first tutorial in the year 2023 and this year is going to be all about open source and about Python applied to mining engineering, geology and geoscience. So in this year, we are going to see how to use freely available tools to solve some common problems in our industry. And I'm going to show you also how you can use this powerful and amazing programming language to create your own tools. So if this is something that really interests you, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications so you will be notified whenever I post something new. So this video is going to be part of a series in which we are going to cover Python and QGIS, or what's known as PyQGIS. So we're going to look at how you can use this programming language, which is Python, to automate things in QGIS, or ultimately you can use it to create your own tools that will solve some specific problems or custom problems that you're facing in your daily activity. So as we all know that QGIS can support multiple data types like raster data and vector data. So we cannot cover everything in just one video. So I've decided to start this with the vector data. We're going to see some basic manipulations of the vector data, and then maybe in the next video we're going to see how you can do raster data, and we're going to take it from there and show you how you can use the programming language to create some custom tools that you can use. So watch the video till the end because you will learn a lot of things today. Okay, so the first thing that you will do in a GIS software usually is loading data inside the software. We know that we can go to, for example, if you want to go and import a shapefile, you can go to the vector menu here and go in, or the layer menu, sorry, and import a new vector layer. But you can do that also programmatically using Python. And why would someone do such a thing if you can go and just import that? Because maybe you want to do something automated on the fly. Maybe you want to import that layer, create a new field in that layer, or assign some values based on existing attributes and load that. So this is going to save you a lot of time, because even if you are going to import like bulk or drag and drop multiple layers in QGIS, we'll be not able to process them on the fly and add fields. But if you do that the programming way, or do that programmatically using Python, you will be able to import, process at the same time. And we're going to look at some examples in this video. They're going to be simple examples, but you can think out of the box and you will be able to do a lot of cool things with this one. So the first thing that you're going to see is basically how can you import a vector layer inside QGIS. It's really simple. All you have to do is to assign that, to create a variable. We're going to call this vector layer, for example, and then assign this one to that variable that we've created. You just go, you can memorize this one, it's iFace, and then you do add vector layer, and then you pass in the path and the name to that shapefile. So we all know that shapefiles, we have like 4 different files that all together make up just one shapefile, but we're interested in this file extension .shp, the same way you import them in your QGIS or your favorite GIS software. We just import the SHP file and it's going to load in the software. Then you specify the name of that layer. So for example, you can see that my layer is called drill holes, but you can call this here, for example, just holes or bore holes or whatever, or new layer, or whatever you want. So the name that you're going to pass in here is going to be the one that appears in the layer panel. It's really that simple. Even someone who don't understand Python, you know how to do this. All you have to do is to assign the this one here to a new variable, which is vector layer, and put in the path to that layer, and all you have to do is to run this, and it's going to import that to you in the layer panel. Let's go and look at that. If I run this script, you can see that we have some drill holes in here, which are just a bunch of points, and you can see that I have the layer here called drill holes. Now, another thing you will see in this video, that this drill hole is going to be imported multiple times, because each time I run the script is going to import that one. So this one is another thing that you can do. Maybe you have a list of shapefiles inside a folder, so you can go and look at the names of with a specific extension in a specific folder using the library OS, for example, and then you can go and import all of these like multiple layers in QGIS that way. So you can see running this multiple times is going to import the same layer multiple times, but we can do this for multiple layers if we want so. Okay, so that's how to import a layer in QGIS. But another thing that is important in GIS layers is the coordinate system. So we can look at the coordinate system of this layer by assigning that to a variable, for example, or maybe you don't want to assign that to a variable. You can just go and paste this one here instead of this variable, and it's going to print out the coordinate system of that layer. So it's basically vector layer, which is this one, which is the variable that stores. So just one thing to keep in mind throughout this video is that vector layer variable is storing the vector layer that we just imported, which is the drill holes in our case. So basically you go to that layer and you do the method.crs, which is coordinate system, and you use the this method to this vector, to this variable that stores the coordinate system, which is description. This is going to give us the text, which means the name of that coordinate system. If I click on this one, you can see I load the layer using the first line here, and then you can see that our coordinate system is WGS 84. So let's go. So this is how you can look at the coordinate system of the layer that you're importing. So let me go and command this out because we don't need this for the moment. And I'm going to go and remove this one because we are going to keep on importing this. Now, what if you want to see the extent of the layer? Maybe you can see in some of the geological modeling softwares that you will need the extent of your drill holes. Some of them will pick them manually, some of the others will require you to insert that as an input. So one way to do this, I know that you can just right click and look at the general information of your layer and you're going to get that, but how to do this programmatically? Maybe you have another operation that needs that value, so you don't have to just go and copy and paste. So it's going to be semi-automatic. You want to make everything automated, so you can go and look at the extent programmatically again. So we just go to vector layer, which is this layer, and we look at the extent, and we can go and print the extent of that vector layer. So you can see that we have the extent in here. But for some people, this might be confusing, especially we don't have a number here, but we have a type which is QGIS rectangle, which is not probably very useful if you want to send this information to another variable, for example, because it's going to store this as this type, not an integer or a text, for example. If you want to get the value, for example, of the minimum x or the maximum y, the way to do this is this way. So let me go and command this out. And you can see that I'm storing multiple variables in here. Each one of them is going to store something specific. So for example, the minimum x, I go to the extent, and I want to see the x minimum, which is a method, the x maximum, the y minimum, the x maximum, okay? And then I can print one of these. So let me go here. I'm printing everything, but what if I want to see the minimum x only? So I can go and run this again, and you can see that this is the minimum x. So this one is actually an integer or a float. I can see 0.0 there. So I can send this to another variable for a calculation, for example, okay? So this is really useful. Okay, so we don't need this again. So let me go and command these out so that we can move to the next thing. Okay, so another cool thing that we can do is we look at the number of features. So in our case, a feature is basically, let me go and load the attribute table. So in our case, the feature is basically this one is a feature, this one is a feature, this one is a feature. In our case, so a feature is a drill hole. So if we run this one, looking at the number of features, which means looking at the number of drill holes. To do that, it's just as simple as assigning that to a variable. We're going to call that n feature or number of features, or you can call it whatever you want. And then we're looking at that vector layer, and we can add to that the method feature count. And you can see that the method name is already self-explanatory. So feature count is going to give us the count of the features inside that vector layer. And if we print that out, we print the n feature, it's going to give us the number, the total number of features that we have in that layer. And in our case, it's 40, and we can confirm that by going to the attribute table. We go down, and you can see that we have 40 drill holes. That's really cool. Why would you need the number of features? Maybe you just want to see the number of features, or if you're running a for loop, for example, and you want that for loop to stop until it reaches the end or the last element in the attribute table, you can do like for I in range, for example, number of features. So this is something that you can use. Okay, let me go and command this out and move to the next one. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to look at the different fields inside the vector layer. Okay, so what are the fields? Fields are basically the columns. So if I go to this one and open the attribute table, these are the fields. Okay, we have the hole ID, X, Y, and Z, and end of hole depth. These are the fields that we have. Okay, what if you want to look at the list of these different columns without opening the attribute table? Because now we're looking at just some simple operations because we're doing these for just one layer. But I want you to imagine doing all of these operations. Maybe you want to store the different, you want to have like a report, and you want to store the fields and the field type and maybe the maximum, each one of these fields, the minimum, or something like that. And I want to do this for like 1,000 layer. If you do this manually, it's going to take you hours or if not days. But if you have a script like this one, you can do it in like few seconds. So that's the power of using Python with QGIS. So now let's go and print out the fields. Basically, to look at the number of fields, we can assign this to a variable if we want. We can call this like fields, for example, and assign it vector.fields. But also we can just go and do for field in this variable here, or it's not a variable, it's the variable here with this method fields, and it's going to loop through all the fields that we have in that layer. And if we print the field, which is this temporary variable here, field name, it's going to give us the name of the field, and this one is going to give us type name, which is the type of that field, whether it is a text or an integer or a float. So let's go and run and see how that looks like. And you can see these are the fields. Basically, we have the hole ID, which is a string. String means that it is a field with some text data, and that's what we have in the hole ID, different names for the different holes. And we have X, which is integer, as you've noticed in here, we don't have like floats, which means values with some decimals. We have just integers. We have x, y, and z, and end of hole depths are all integers. So that's how to do it, how to look at the different fields, the names, and their types. It's really that simple. Okay, let me go and delete these because I don't want like to see 10 layers in here as we go. So the same way we've seen the fields, we can actually look at the features. So we can store the features inside a variable. We're going to call this features. Again, we do the method get features. We do it with the that vector layer. So get the features from that vector layer. And then what I want to do is I want to loop through all of these features. So this one is going to store all the different features. And now we're going to loop through all of these features, okay? Now, the f, which is the temporary variable, since we are going to loop through everything. So let's say that we're on the first line. The f is going to hold that first line, okay? So that first line is I'm going to look at the attributes of that first line. So it is stored in this one, okay? So if I'm going to print just this one, it's going to give me the first row in that in the attribute table, okay? But what if I want to look at something specific? Let's say I want to see I want to loop through all of the features and print just the holes. Since the hole ID is the first column, and in Python, indexing starts from 0, so the first column is going to have an index of 0, then we can do f attributes, or we can just replace this one with this guy here. So I can go and do this. I'm going to say this attribute, this attr variable or attribute, we're going to call this just attribute 0. So this one is going to give me the first line, or it's going to give me just the whole ID. So let me go and run this, and you can see that it goes through all of the different attributes. So it's going to go loop through all of these features, but just give me the value in the first column. So in the second column and so on, it's going to keep on printing these values. And this way I can see just the whole ID in here. Okay, what if I want to see everything? All I have to do is to remove that one. Let me clean this one. And if I run this, it's going to give me just the first, it's going to give me the row, the full row. You can see I have like like whole ID, X, Y, Z, and the end of whole. So this is going to give me the full attribute. If I add that 0, it's going to give me, it's going to give me this one, which is the first element in this list. If I set 1 here, it's going to give me the second element in that list. But now, also what we can do, what if we're interested in just X, Y, and Z? So I want to remove this and remove this. Then we can slice the list easily by doing 1 and 4. So this one is going to get rid of the first element in here and the last element in here. If I clean this and run this again, you'll see that I have now a list of X, Y, and Z. Maybe you want to look at just at X, Y, and Z, are not interested in any other elements. So that's one way to do it. And that's basically what I'm doing in here. Also, again, so let me remove these. We don't need them. You can also look at the names, the different names. So let me go and command these out. And maybe you want to see the different fields. Maybe you don't know what are the fields that you have. You can do that by, let me clean this and run this again. You can see these are the fields that we have: whole ID, X, Y, Z, and end of whole depth as a list. And you do that by doing vector fields.names, and it's going to give you the different names. Okay, I've already done this here, but now you can do this and look at them in just a list instead of looping through all of the different fields. Okay, so let me go and delete that one. We don't need it, and clean this up. And also let me remove these. Okay, now we all know also in QGIS, if you want to add something, if you want to add a feature, either you want to digitize that or you want to add a value or you want to modify an existing value, you need to add the layer and then press the Start Editing button, which is this button, or you can right click and choose Start Editing. The same thing applies when doing that programmatically or using Python. So if you want to add something new to the layer, you need to do that start editing part of the operation. And we can do that by doing the same way, by doing vector layer start editing, which means that we're going to start editing this vector layer. And start editing now, we can go and add things. And if we want to add a new field, for example, which is what we are going to do now, you have to do this variable here, which is layer provider. You can call it whatever you want. Basically, we add this method vector data provider to that vector layer, and then we are going to manipulate this one here to add different attributes. So for example, data provider now, add attributes, we are going to add a QGIS field, which is called the new x. Basically, maybe you want to calculate a new x coordinate. Maybe you've shifted the whole, like, I don't know, like a little 1 meter to the right, or whatever is the operation. Just I'm imagining something here. And the type of that new attribute is going to be double, which means a number with a decimal, so a decimal number. And then, like in QGIS, if you want to save things, you just need to like click again on that start editing, and it's going to give you a small window saying you want to save or not. You click on save, and that's what we're doing here. You say vector layer dot commit changes, which means save everything that we've done. Okay, I'm going to do this. Now, let me try and show you what we have so far. Let me go and print out the same fields again and see if we have a new field called new x. If I go and run this, you'll notice that we have that list of the different fields, but now we have a new field called new x. To verify that, we can go to the attribute table, and you will notice that we have a new field now created called new x, but it is an empty field. And what we're going to see now is how you can fill values from this, how you can fill values to this new field that we've created. So let me go and delete that one, save this again, and remove this layer. And let me clear this, and let's continue. Okay, so I don't want to see the names again. Okay, so now instead of going and saving, I don't want to save now because I'm going to add some values before saving the layer. So I'm going to go and command this out, and I'm going to move to the next one. Basically now I'm going to do the same thing again, features, vector layer.get features. I'm looking at all the features, and then I'm going to loop through all the features. So I'm saying for G in features, basically G, as if I'm saying for every feature in features. So every feature is going to be stored in the temporary variable here called G. You can call it whatever you want. And basically what I'm doing is I'm saving the ID of that feature inside a variable called ID. Basically, each one of the features inside the attribute table has a unique ID, an identifier that you can use that to get the value of that specific, or like assign a specific value to that specific feature. Now I'm going to go, and so basically I have the ID, and then I'm going to say for that, in that feature, give me the geometry. So this is going to be the geometry here. And since I have like points, and because you cannot do this as points with a segment, let's say, because you don't have one x in that segment. So it needs to be a point to have this method which is x, that's going to give us the x coordinate. Okay, maybe if you have like a polygon, you need to get the centroid and then get the x of that centroid. Okay, now we're treating this as a point since we have points, and then I'm getting the x, which is the x coordinate of that feature. Then I'm adding 1000 to that existing x, to that actual x. And then what I'm doing here is I'm creating a variable in which I have the fifth attribute, which is this one. Remember that we have like whole ID, x, y, and z, and end of whole, which makes them 5 variables. I mean, like 5 fields. And since we start from 0, which means we have the maximum index is 4 if we start from 0, so the index number 5 is going to be equal to this one, to the new field that we've created. This one, the index of this one is 5. So we're saying that in the index 5, I want you to assign this new calculated x. Okay. Then again, to assign a value, we do layer data provider, which is this guy here. We do change attribute values. We are going to change that attribute, and to locate that exact cell, we look at the ID from that field there, from that feature. This is the ID that we've retrieved using the g.id, and then we assign this dictionary here, which is the new x field, and that like the new x calculated, and that field which is the new x. Okay, and then when we're happy with that, we need to now do like vector layer commit changes, and this is going to save everything that we've done. So let's go and run this and see how it looks. Basically, we've loaded the drill holes, and now if we look at the attribute table, you'll notice that we have a new field called new x. And if you look at this one, which is equal to x, this x, you can see 3,500, but now we have 4,500, which means it is the x plus 1,000. Now you can think this is really a simple example, but you can do plenty of things, programmatically using this one. So now you know how to import a shapefile layer or a vector layer inside QGIS. You know how to look at the different attributes, look at the different features inside that layer. You can also create a new attribute, and you can assign new values to that attribute. Trust me, with just this knowledge, you can do a lot of amazing things. You just need to have a problem or something that you need to solve, and then you can use other libraries from Python. You can store the different attribute tables inside a pandas data frame. You can do some statistics and plot the statistics, or you can plot some charts, and you can do some amazing things. So this is it for the first part, in which we are going to in which we covered vector layers. And by the way, this is the last thing here, which is if you want to delete that field that you've just created. So let me go and delete this one, for example, and save it. Okay, so this script is going to create that field again, and it is going to assign the different values, but then this one is supposed to delete that one. So let's go and see how this one works, and it's going to be the last thing for this tutorial. So let me go and run this, and if I go and open this one, let me just start editing, and if I run this, you can see that it disappears. Why? Because I've changed this one, and I didn't start editing. So to get this one to work, you need to move this to the bottom here. So you created that, and you delete the field that you've created, and then you save this one. Since we've saved the changes, so it's not in editing mode, This one is not going to be deleted until I just edit this again and start editing. And you can see that it was deleted right away after I click it on editing. So that's it for this tutorial, and this one is going to be just the first part of a series for Python in QGIS. And if you guys like this one, make sure to share it with anyone who might be interested, and make sure to subscribe if not subscribed, because this channel is all about geology, mining engineering, GIS, and geoscience in general. We will dive a lot into some cool Python related things, and for those who stayed to the end, stay tuned for that implicit modeler in QGIS, because we're going to cover that in the upcoming days. So see you in the next tutorial.
'Cause he's the mining geologist, here to show you all the things that you might have missed. He's got plenty of software tips and tricks for your geoscience.